What's up, YouTube? I'm back out in the shop today and I wanted to talk about carrier bearings. So let's go. This is the inside of the buggy. I just wanted to go over the carrier bearing quick. I am running a busted knuckle carrier bearing. Okay, 1480 joint, 1480 joint, 1480 joint. Nothing wrong with running a thinner wall tube at your carrier bearing. I see a lot of people talking about it all the time. Your inner carrier bearing should be 2 1/4 or 2.5 inch, 1/4 inch wall tube. Well, does it need it? I don't think so. Come to your joint. If your joint here is slightly smaller than the output joint, like this one, this is a 2.5 inch, 1/4 inch wall output, or your main drive that goes to the front of the axle over there. But the carrier bearing inner is still a 2 inch wall tube. Don't think it's completely necessary to go to a bigger size tube at the carrier bearing. I haven't really seen anybody break one to those sizes as far as I'm aware. I've had really good luck with mine, but let's talk into some other carrier bearing options. Here's another look at the busted knuckle carrier bearing. This is an old one. What I really like about these bearings is this whole entire support here that goes all the way through. It's one piece. There is no dual piece like the wide open design or Beyond Precise Performance ones. This is all solid one piece. Not a super big fan of busted knuckles other aftermarket parts and accessories, but these really seem to hold up great. I know multiple people running them for years on end. They do come with bushings. Do not do the bushings. Bushings are a bad way to go. They're prone to failure, they're weak, and the bolts that hold them in, if they're not grade 8, it's trash. So really happy with these. Now, Northern Driveline does offer some of these other aftermarket companies that do make a bigger splice. This one is 3 inch, goes to a 3 inch diameter tube, like so. These are all press fitted. Obviously you want to run these in a lathe before you weld them, but there are also smaller options like what I went with here. Now this is the same one from Northern Driveline, 1410 joint, 10 spline inner, and then this is the same as the 1410 carrier. These ones are great, 2 inch inner spline for your stub or for your flange to go on to, and then you're also pairing that with the 2 inch inner for your spline for your outer, of course, and then that will just go to this style yoke. So as far as having these solid mounted in here, you can see the carrier bearings right here. It's a 1/2 inch grade 8 bolt that runs through with a lock washer on the bottom, and that's how I have it solid mounted to the drivetrain, coming right from the transfer case there. All right, guys, just wanted to talk about that. Carrier bearing options, there's a lot of ways to go. I really do recommend the busted knuckle setup. Like I said, I'm not a super big fan of busted knuckles aftermarket parts, but as far as those go, I've been really happy with them. They seem to work out great. Few years now on that one, and I've never seen a failure out of them. Like I said, I've seen a bunch of them and a bunch of other buggies, not to mention all of BK's turn buggies do have that style carrier bearing, the solid one-piece one. Still haven't seen a failure out of it. So that's what I'd recommend going to if you're going to go with that kind of a carrier bearing. Or if you don't need a carrier bearing, then don't worry about it. But if you're going to do it, a smaller inner tube is also okay. It really depends on what your application is for. All right, this is going to be a relatively short video, but I just wanted to dive into it. This is a fuel cell, 1/8 inch wall, aluminum, 4340, not aircraft grade, or 4041, sorry, not aircraft grade aluminum. You can run a thinner aluminum. Some people like to run 16th aluminum. Nothing wrong with that. As far as I'm concerned, 1/8 inch is the way to go. Here's the biggest kicker on the fuel cells, how you mount them. I do like running pucks. You can get pucks from Busted Knuckle, Wide Open Design, Barnes 4x4, a bunch of other companies sell them. And then you can also run smaller pucks. Now, here's what I do not recommend doing. Not recommend bushing mounting your fuel cell. Bushing mountings are okay. They seem okay on paper until you realize that the bushings tend to wear out over time. And when you have 35 pounds of fuel joshing around inside of a 10 or so gallon fuel cell, it makes that stuff easy to wear out. I've seen failures out of those a few times now. I went with solid mount. You can see here, you got a bar running from one side to the other side. Now, I did have a buddy help me come and figure this out, but the idea behind it is if the fuel cell is allowed to sag a little bit and not take jostles from side to side, it seems to hold up far better. The thing I'm going to talk about is in-tank fuel pumps. I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad from in-tank fuel pumps, and I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad from inline fuel pumps. And as far as I'm concerned, the intake fuel pump is superior from both. especially on rock bouncers where stuff's getting sloshed around, or if you're uphill, downhill. The advantage of an in-tank fuel pump really comes down to two things: your cooling and your consistency to always have fuel. There's always fuel, especially if you run a hydromat or a pickup map at the bottom of the fuel pump. Should always run a vent hose. That's gonna do it for this video, guys. Thanks. Peace out.